Hello lovelies. This video might surprise some of you because most of you know of my disdain for philosophy, because philosophy is barely a discipline for real. But I have become fascinated with one particular aspect of philosophy, and that being the philosophy of bears. Now, bear with me. We have this joke amongst my meat space friends, I think originating with an ex of mine, that the bare minimum is one bear, a single bear, a bear alone, a solitaire, living a solitary life, a belorn soul languishing in unbearable loneliness. I find this funny because I'm strange. But strange things also set off my brain on even stranger tangents. So is the bare minimum a single bear? The largest bear is typically considered to be the polar bear, but the Kodiak bear gives it a run for its money. It's a subtype of brown bear. It's a close rival. Polar bears have been recorded close to 1,000 kilograms in weight. By contrast, the smallest extant bear species is the sun bear, and these are typically no heavier than about 65 kilograms. Proof that size isn't the be-all and end-all of everything. So clearly, a sun bear is less bear than a polar bear. So the bare minimum might specifically be a sun bear. Now, I considered historicity here. Do we have fossils of larger or smaller bears? Why limit ourselves to existing bears? It doesn't bear thinking about. The largest bear to have ever existed is the American short-faced bear. That could be over 1,600 kilograms, we estimate. That's 1.5 Kodiaks. That's setting the bear pretty high. There don't seem to be any fossil bears smaller than the sun bear, though, so the sun bear is at this point still our bare minimum, assuming there's just one of them. But what about other things? What about representations of bears? Are representations of bears also bears? Teddy bears are small compared to real bears, even sun bears, or at least they can be, and this can be taken to an extreme. Gummy bears can be even smaller than most teddy bears. Haribo's mini bears in their mixed bags are only about 20 millimeters in height, 2 centimeters. And though attempts have been made to create much smaller gummy bears, I couldn't find any official record on the smallest size. And when it comes to teddy bears, that's a different matter. People go crazy for teddy bears and do all kinds of mad shit around teddy bears. Mad shit in the woods, presumably. The smallest sewn teddy bear measures a grand total of 4.5 millimeters, under half a centimeter in height. It was made in 2006 by Cheryl Moss of South Africa and is held in the Teddy Bear Museum on Jeju Island, South Korea. That one's named Tiny Ted, which is a shame because the second smallest sewn teddy bear in existence has the much better name of Minnie the Pooh, which I find delightful. But teddy bears can get stuffed. If we're going into representations, then what about drawings? Pooh and Paddington had real-life counterparts in the form of actual physical teddy bears before they were committed to paper in much smaller but more animated form, you might say, and those books especially, or at least Winnie the Pooh's books, have been published in novelty small formats, which decreases the size of our Pooh even more. So that's worth considering. The smallest drawing in the world is claimed to be the Mini Lisa, which is only 30 microns across, which I think is smaller than a human hair. I couldn't find any bears at that scale, but so long as we're talking tiny, there are also nano machines that are only 25 nanometers across. And using atomic writing techniques, you could potentially create a somewhat recognizable image of a bear at a tenth of that size, which is barely there at all. But since we're taking it this far, is a stuffed toy a bear? Is a drawing of a bear? We can point at it and say that's a bear, even though it's a drawing of a bear. But then Magritte kind of wrestled with that, didn't he? Ce n'est pas un, whatever the French word for bear is. But the concept of a bear, we hold that in our thoughts. In some people's minds, ironically enough, that is considered to be immaterial, despite it being a pattern of neurons and energy signals in our brain, which is very physical, stored in our cerebellum, if you will. Neurons are bigger than these smaller potential nanometer representations, even without taking into account the number of neurons necessary, the framework of them, the energy patterns that form the thought of a bear, and even without taking ganglia into account. So I think the thought of a bear is actually, ironically, bigger potentially than some representations of bears. But maybe we're getting a bit silly. I think the bare minimum has to be something real, actual, and physical. So the smallest actual bear is a sun bear. But what about a baby bear? A newborn baby sun bear can weigh as little as 280 grams. So is this our bare minimum? A newborn baby sun bear is specifically the bare minimum. Or have we then found our bare minimum? Well, why should we stop there? I mean, they're born with fur. We could shave the fur off. It would still be a bear. It would still be recognisably a bear, but there would be even less of it. So is our bare minimum a shaven baby sun bear? Would it be any less of a bear if it were born with only one arm? I mean, it would still be a bear. Physically, in terms of weight and mass and size, it would, however, be less of a bear. So is the bare minimum then a deformed baby newborn sun bear? Could we take that even further? Could we surgically pare down a newborn baby sun bear until it's little more than a brain on life support? And would this then be the bare minimum? But since we're taking it this far, why stop with mutilating baby bears? Why pause when things are getting grisly? Is an in utero bear still a bear, or does it have to be capable of bearing in order to be a bear? Is a bear fetus a bear, or merely a potential bear? A bear waiting to become a bear? With humans, we can draw a line at consciousness, perhaps, between what you could call human tissue and a human being. Can we draw a similar line between bear tissue and a bear bearing? Does that have bearing on our discussion? If yes, then only post-birth bears really count, or at least post-consciousness bears, for whatever passes as consciousness in bears. So if it's post-birth bears, then we have our bare minimum. But if not, well, a fertilized bear ovum is probably in the bounds of 1 millimeter in size maximum. Is it a bear, or merely a bear in potential? That's, I think, for you to answer for yourselves. But let's push this one step further. After all, female gametes are already much larger than a lot of other cells in our bodies, or presumably bear bodies, even before they're fertilized. And they don't actually contain all of the information necessary to make new bears or humans or whatever other animal it might be, at least not for most creatures. Not without sperm, anyway. But the smallest animal or human fully nucleated cell containing the whole genome is a small resting lymphocyte. These are like a sort of passive alarm system for your immune system. Nonetheless, these very small cells contain all the information necessary to create, in this case, a new bear. And so if we regard that information as being what constitutes essential bareness, then that is the bare minimum. Otherwise, I think a newborn baby sun bear is the most widely accepted bare minimum. Thanks for bearing with me. Zang. Postmortem Studios, role-playing games, and a lot more to die for. Post-mort.com